the Eternity Flame in Springfield, Massachusetts, to honor President John F. Kennedy, who was assassinated November 22nd, 1963. But little did he know his fate had been sealed years before that fateful day in Dallas.
What is up, you guys? It's your boys Bino and Nicky coming back at you guys. Little different today. We know some of you guys really missed the live streams, but this is part one of our little mini docu-series we were telling you guys about. We got the trailer video out for it. The Kennedy murders. What's up, B?
Yeah, the Kennedy murders and the involvement of the Mafia. La Cosa Nostra.
Did the mob and the CIA have the Kennedys killed?
Well, we're going to find out, aren't we?
Absolutely. Now, we're going to go over a few, like I said, this is going to be a few-parter, and we're going to start with someone who had a really big role, if it did go down the way a lot of people think it went
Probably
down.
the biggest role.
Probably the biggest role, and that was Sam Giancana.
Yeah, Momo Giancana. For those of you who don't know who Sam Momo Giancana is, he was from Chicago, Illinois. He was a gangster. He was the mob boss, and at one time, the most powerful mafia boss in the whole country.
And it goes all the way back to the Capone days.
Yeah, it definitely does. He was born May 24th, 1908 in Chicago.
Yeah.
And his early career is, he had a tough childhood and stuff, but his early criminal career started with a gang in Chicago called the 42s.
Yeah, and they said even as a young kid, he loved to torture and misery. He loved to take it out on people.
Absolutely, and he proved himself to Al Capone that he was a great getaway
driver, right?
He was an earner, and he was a vicious killer at a young age, in his early teens.
And he wound up growing into somebody with a lot of power.
Tremendous amount of power.
Like a ton of power. Like, it's unbelievable, these documentaries we watched about him.
You know what happened is when first time he went to jail, he was in a joint. He was locked up with a black guy named Eddie Jones.
Eddie Jones, yeah.
Eddie Jones ran the policy, which was the street lottery.
Yeah.
It was a black thing. It wasn't even ever, imagine, thinking back now, we think of the street lottery as an Italian thing.
As a mob, yeah. The Italian mob.
It was a black thing. And Eddie Jones had ran that.
Yeah,
so Giancana got released from prison, and he decided, what do you think
sounds
I'm gonna
like
do?
I could make some money there.
He took it over.
He did.
He had a couple goons go grab Eddie Jones and bring him to a meeting at Sam's house.
He gave him an ultimatum, though. He didn't beat him up.
He did not. He said, you can either leave town or you can get your legs broken.
It's safe to say he left town.
He did leave town.
He definitely did. And it even got, so during, so like we mentioned, even when he was a kid, he liked to torture people. And that kept true all the way up until...
he was a boss.
Until he was a boss.
He would actually ask guys how they killed a guy or something. He wanted the details of it.
Like right before he was made a boss, though, he got called to the draft board for World War II.
Oh.
And even they sent him home.
They said he was a constitutional psychopath.
Completely psycho. And it was right after that he was named a capo.
In the Chicago outfit, yes, he was. Yes, he was.
And then right after that, I mean, he was a pretty big family man too. Loved his kids, spoiled the hell out of his daughter and his wife. And he took him to Hollywood for a little while.
Well, he had, what they did is the Chicago outfit had infiltrated the actors unions.
Yeah.
So when you control the actors unions, you control the production.
Oh yeah, so
you can make your own calls in Hollywood. Who gets what part?
Yeah,
this, that, the other. You know what I mean?
And they absolutely said he used that power too. Like he was able to start and stop production on a film, drop of a dime.
Because when this is the thing that people don't understand. One of the biggest things with the mob always was controlling the unions. Whether it's the laborers union, whether it's the any part of construction.
Yeah, the port doesn't matter. Yeah.
If you control the unions, you control the work. You hold the power.
And that's why
the Italians figured that out a long time ago.
Yeah.
You control the unions, you hold the power. You know what I mean?
And when they were in Hollywood, I mean, they got the royal treatment. They got actors, celebrities. They give them private studio tours. He was really close with people like Sammy Davis Jr.
Frank Sinatra.
And that's what I was going to say. Your good friend. You sing his tunes every once in a while.
The summer wind... Sam came blowing in and made me an offer I couldn't refuse.
They said Frank Sinatra was constantly around his house with his family and stuff. They were wicked good friends, really close. And he just had a wide range of power over everybody.
Absolutely, he did. And
I mean, even like the celebrities. I mean, he was wanted to be around them too. He was good friends with all of them.
he knew them all. Obviously, Frank Sinatra was the biggest one. I'm guessing.
Probably.
I wasn't alive back then because he was Italian.
And I think it's safe to say, with all the producers that he extorted, a lot of the producers in Hollywood probably weren't big fans of Sammy. By the way he was extorting them for everything.
Well, that's the name of the game, and I'm sure that helped Sinatra's career tenfold. You know.
Oh, I'm sure.
Getting
it
the
did.
parts he got, getting the contracts he got.
So-
I'm sure Sam had a lot to do with that to help him. Although Sinatra was big on his own before that.
Yeah,
let's
you know
give him
what's
his props.
So when I was watching the documentary, I knew Sinatra was big, but when I was watching this and I started learning about all this, about how big and the reach that Giancana had, I was like, oh wow, that probably really helped Sinatra even more.
Of course it did.
Yeah.
You know, it's all about, you know, and which is even true with anybody. Like my grandfather used to say, it's not about what you know, it's who you know.
That's very true.
And that rings true anywhere in the world. But when you have friends with that type that wield that type of power, it can only help you. It can only help you. And Sam Giancana, believe me, between the 50s and the early 60s, there was no more powerful mafioso in the country than Sam Giancana.
No, and they say that he actually thought he really understood power, and he loved it. It made him feel like God.
Oh,
So
well,
that right there will tell you just what kind of guy he was.
well, when you're wielding that type of power, when you're controlling all the unions, when you're controlling all the rackets, when you can literally at a spoken word end somebody's life.
Yeah, and it sounds like he ended quite a few lives.
Or you could make or break somebody, whether it's in Hollywood or when you have that kind of power, that's unlimited power, and that's going to lead us into later on in this series on the type of power that he had and the type of things he could affect the outcomes of.
Yeah, that's for sure. That absolutely blew my mind. But it made sense when, you know, what we're talking about, the Kennedy murders here.
Yeah.
It made sense when we found out a lot of what we found out. To me, I always wondered how it had got to that point. And Sam Giancana was a big reason why.
Well, when you look at it, he's the linchpin. He's the connecting point to get the Kennedys with Sam Giancana, because they needed the votes in Illinois. They needed to win Illinois, which a lot of people will say that they didn't need that because he got the electoral votes. But it came down to, I forget what it said, it was like 1.110%.
Yeah, it was something like
he
4,000
barely won
votes.
the presidency.
Yeah.
He barely won the presidency. So whatever Sam Giancana did in Illinois absolutely helped. But Frank Sinatra was the one that introduced the Kennedys to Sam Giancana.
Right, and we're going to have a lot about the Kennedys in part 2, but a little more about Sam Giancana. Now, like we said, he had so much power. He had a grip over the unions. And he even had a tight grip around Jimmy Hoffa, believe it or not. I was actually surprised to know that.
Jimmy Hoffa, the Teamsters Union, all their the pension fund,
Right.
all the loans to build the Vegas casinos,
Right, that's where it all came from.
Came from Hoffa.
And that's why...
They built, let's just call
and
it
that's
what
why
it
they
is.
knocked him down.
The Mafia built Las Vegas.
Oh, they absolutely did. They
Las
absolutely
Vegas,
did.
You know, and today's a different story. When you think of Vegas, it's more commercialized and stuff. They got them all out of there.
Yeah.
Which I don't know if they're completely out of there. Who knows?
You never
I don't
know.
know. You don't know. We don't know.
There
That's
might
only,
still be a lucky
but
one
in
or
those
two.
days, they controlled Las Vegas.
Right.
Complete control of Las Vegas.
And like we had mentioned, Sam Giancana, he was a huge family man, and his wife actually just suddenly passed away when she was still relatively young. And then he liked the glitz and the glamour. He started dating Phyllis McGuire, who was a very well-known...
Of the McGuire sisters, yeah, they were
Right.
very well known at the time. They were the it thing at the time. The McGuire sisters. They were on all kinds of shows. They were on commercials. I've seen one where they were doing
very pretty
king size
girls.
Coke. Beautiful, beautiful. But here's the thing. And that didn't do him any favors when he started dating her, because the perception. Let's just be honest here. Let's call it like it is. The perception of Italians at the time was they were perceived as the lowest form of being white.
Almost like thugs, yeah.
The lowest form of being
Yeah.
white. So if to have this pristine, American princess in the eyes,
Dating Sam Giancana.
dating the evil mafioso Sam Giancana, the people didn't like it.
And that was... one thing was people did like it, though. Like, mainstream America couldn't get enough of it.
She liked it.
And the mob didn't think it was a good thing at all because it was getting so much attention.
Too much attention. And you got to understand, back in those days, this is way before John Gotti and these guys flashing and this and that. The Mafia didn't want to be seen like that.
Yeah, not at all.
They didn't want to flash like that. They didn't want cameras on them.
Right.
That was not their MO at the time. You know, these guys were the old saying that they would call them mustache Pete's. That goes back to the old country. You know what I mean? The old ways. The old ways. It was about honor, respect. You know, that's what they believed. Not that I don't know how much honor and respect it was, but you know what I mean? That's what they believed. They didn't want the publicity of him dating a Hollywood star.
Especially now, I thought this was really crazy too. Now, the FBI actually sent J. Edgar Hoover to Chicago to personally work on busting Sam Giancana.
Yeah, he had.
They wanted him really.
He
bad.
personally didn't actually physically go. He sent the team there personally to dig into Giancana. And what they did is they one guy, I believe it was Romer was his name, the FBI agent.
Yeah.
And but at the time, wiretapping was not a thing.
It wasn't a thing at all.
Like
I'm pretty sure he was like the first person they did it to.
He was. And the actual agent even said if he had got caught doing that, the FBI would have disowned him.
And they said everything. Like he was listening to him have sex, listening to him cook in his house, like everyday life. Like they listened to everything.
They did. They listened to everything. And but at the end of the day, Sam Giancana just knew too much.
He did, and he was a very powerful guy. And as we know, Frank Sinatra introduced him to Joe Kennedy Sr.
Yeah, he did. He was the missing link in that.
And many people say, and the more that I actually start to read, that Joe Kennedy Sr. was a pretty dirty guy when it came to a lot of things.
Well, there is, and you know, there's a big perception that Joe Kennedy Sr. was a bootlegger,
right?
Which is vehemently denied by anybody on that side, the Kennedy side. But what I do know,
there's some crazy
there
stories.
There was supposedly another Joe Kennedy in Vancouver, Canada. He was the bootlegger.
Yeah.
And it just said Joe Kennedy on the things, but
that's what I mean. Like,
which with the bootlegging thing, you can't prove it because it's all hearsay, this and that.
It wouldn't surprise me though if like the CIA or FBI made this Joe Kennedy from Quebec or whatever.
No, who knows? Who knows?
You never know.
But here's the thing. This is one thing that is known. After Prohibition ended, Joe Kennedy was given the licenses to sell the gin and the whiskey. So that's a little insider trading before it was illegal.
Interesting too,
because he went to school. He was friends with Roosevelt's kid. There's a lot of inside stuff there. And before insider trading was illegal, you know.
And Joe Kennedy loved his kids very much. That's why one day after Frank Sinatra made the introduction, Sam Giancana and Joe Kennedy Sr. had a big meeting.
They had luncheons.
And that's going to be part 2. We got a lot of Joe Kennedy and Kennedy news. We're gonna get that all done in part 2. And what else we got? Did we leave anything out about Sam Giancana?
No, I don't think we left anything out about Momo Giancana. I mean, we can get to his death, but that'd probably be later on.
Yeah, that's probably a little later on. And I gotta say, I had actually, until we started doing research on this, he was one mobster I had never heard of.
And didn't realize how powerful he was.
Sounds like he was the mobster.
In his time, he was the guy.
First picture I saw of this guy, I said, he does not, you could tell he does not fuck around, this guy.
Yeah, Sam Momo Giancana. Yeah, Sam Momo Giancana. Very powerful. Very, very, very powerful. And sometimes you just know too much.
Yeah, and I mean, sometimes that's what it is. And sometimes you know too much and know the wrong people, and you'll get people like the CIA or people running for office knocking at your front door.
Exactly.
So we appreciate you guys for checking out part 1.
And stay tuned for part 2. We should be dropping that soon.
Absolutely. And guys, please make sure if you're not a subscriber to the channel, please subscribe, hit the bell.
Like the video, share the video.
Comment on it. Let us know what you like, what you don't like. Tag your friends in it. Do whatever. But we really appreciate you guys tuning in and look forward to part 2.
Thank you.
Bino and Nicky out.
Out.
Peace.
Peace.